All right. So, reputation change management. Why do we need to change? Well, Remedy was going away. TELUS and their tool system is a thing of the past. So we pulled ServiceNow in house, and we needed a new solution for our change management tool that 7 years ago was just supposed to be an interim solution as well. Part of the big problems with both ServiceNow that we have in place today and the Remedy solution is limited user accessibility for the cost model. So we are very limited in the access that we can give people to those tools. They are very expensive to maintain, and it really hamstrung our process from a good partnership with business and IT teams being able to see everything and be involved throughout the process and the records and all the rest of it. So we decided to move to this internal system that, as it turns out, is going to be used by a lot of our business.
All right, 10:36. How are we making out?
For some of the applications that we're developing.
Is anyone having any issues, or did you all manage to get in?
The idea of transitioning ITSM processes into this new platform with a front end AI and a blockchain back end that literally just cost us the data fees. I think $6 was our fee last month. Awesome. It is crazy cheap compared to, say, an end user license for ServiceNow that'll run you between $800 and $1,200 a year, depending on our cost model.
Please, yes. Once you sign up for the account, you actually have access to both.
The other piece we noticed from a process perspective is that
we'll get you in test so that we can actually play around and get you creating some stuff.
They didn't add value. It was very difficult.
Please, once you have access, don't create test changes in production. It's an auditable system, and I can't have garbage going in. I do have one demo change in there so people can kind of see it when they get in, but no non-real work.
You had to search to figure out how we were doing from an overarching business perspective, the value that we were providing, the issues that maybe we were seeing.
Let me know when you guys have the bar.
Oh yeah, we did it this way last time so that we didn't see problems. What we did is we kind of revamped the process. So we have this overarching change now for logically grouped activities. So whether that's lights on activities for maintenance on a particular system, whether it is a project that is running end to end, and we fit all of the different pieces of work to bring that project to life under that same change record. It gives access to everyone that we invite to that project to see the history of what we've done. They can see all of the infrastructure we've set up. They can see the application.
How's everybody else doing? Anybody have any issues?
That we've invited to test and be a part of the work. And really, when we do that too, from a risk perspective, it drops our risk profile.
Okay, I'll give you a couple more minutes here, and then we'll carry on.
Looking at the work and the efforts, you can see the life cycle as it goes along. We can stop things before they start to go off the rails. We can change direction, or we can decide to close off a project if it is not adding value.
Here we go.
And go in a different direction. There is a lot more data points.
Logged on to test, email wasn't there.
And if I just do a single point in time work model, like a lot of the ITSM tools that you see out there today. The other reason that it really works for ATB
that's kind of weird. I believe you're in the list there. Hang on.
Our cross-functional teams are assigned as specific resources. Not the entire support team is assigned to a particular project or
not to a device. I would prefer that you save it on the cloud, because if it disappears, you're out of luck. But if you can.
So we've adjusted that whole approval space away from an
overarching support team. Absolutely. Nobody's really responsible. Yeah, you're in there, Richard. So you should be signed in. That's I've never seen anybody get that error before, but I guess it's possible.
The way that makes
as long as you're in, that's the important thing. Did it give you all the encryption mnemonics, though, everything else? Like, did it take you through the full sign-up process?
Model. We're looking for all of those individuals across our cross-functional teams to get together. And as long as things are going well, there's no reason
I will talk to Ben, because maybe for the people who are external to ATB, he's only added them to test right now. I will ask him.
The organization.
I didn't think we saw that problem on Friday, but I could be wrong.
3%.
We did some updates over the weekend too, so.
But it was still a very, very small number. We are working on reducing that risk capability or that risk area even more with the CMDB.
That's the home screen. Yeah. So this is not
properly.
This is what we call a minimum viable product. Okay. This is going to be developed over time. It's not like your normal Windows with icons and buttons and clicks and all the rest of that. This is a conversational tool that you have with the Eva AI.
Importantly, avoid taking stuff down unnecessarily.
Now, to that end, she's very context based. Which means if I say something like pepperoni, I could be talking just about a sandwich meat. I could be talking about a pizza. I could be talking about a calzone. I don't really have a frame of reference other than I kind of know what pepperoni is and where it needs to go. Eva's very much that way. So when you start talking to her, she tries to put in context what you've said and give you answers based on what she understands. So in an example here on the screen, I'm going to mistakenly misspell change. I'm going to put charge in
when you
instead.
Pick a particular system through a CMDB model.
And Eva thinks about it for a minute. We get a few dotted lines where she's going. And then she comes back to me and she says registry changes. Well, that's not particularly helpful. That's not what I was looking at. Or registry charges, pardon me. Not particularly helpful, not what I was looking at all. And now I know that she's in registry mode. She's thinking about things to do with registry because that's where her brain went. What I need to do to get her out of that thought piece so I can get back to what I was actually asking about, which is change, I just have to type break. And you know, she moves to, okay, let's start over. How can I help?
A bunch of different ways. Definitely.
Now we're going to do something that's a little more descriptive. So we're going to give her a verb and we're going to give her the context of what we want her to use that verb in. So we're going to put search
talk about the timing
and change.
Impacts and who we need to get engaged and what we need to do to
make it. I'll bring that to you now, and voila, she understood what I was actually asking. And holy cow, we got a ton of changes that she's just pulled up for me. I've got 4 pages of changes if I scroll down all the way to the bottom.
Anything that is not already approved before.
Now, the context space, again, I would advise she is a new AI. She's still learning. She's like a 4-year-old. So using really long sentences, using really a word with a lot of descriptors in it is going to get her confused. So if you put search for changes that are in active status on October 4th, 2018, she's going to look at all of that, and there's a lot of data there for her to put in context. There may be dates and other applications and knowledge bases on the platform that we have. There may be an active status for a number of workflows in the applications on the platform. You're going to get her confused, so keep it short, sweet, and to the point. It can be conversational, but like you're talking to a 3 or a 4-year-old.
Confidence in change is
when we pull up the search change piece, you have the ability to filter. And what this search piece does, it's dynamic filtering. So if I just start typing in a requester name here, I started Anj Pei is the owner of the tool. And she's put in a few of these changes, and I've had my screen zoomed in so that you can get a better view, because I guess it's been very small in some of our other presentations. But it dynamically filters as I type. So from that list of 4 pages, I now have one page with like 7 changes.
Some of the movement tools like Active Control.
I can also filter the results, or I can filter the list before I start typing. So let's see, I just want to say, see the changes that are in review.
To reduce the duplication.
And there is only one change here
there's a
in review
lot
status.
That we have planned.
And it's the
and it's wide open
change right here.
You can invite anybody.
And you'll notice that the filter criteria adjusts as the list adjusts. So right now, in that main list, if I go none selected, the only statuses for change I had were closed, canceled, or reviewed. There's no active in that list that I initially searched by. So that's all that's available in my dropdown. From the confidence factor, because there's only one change in there and it's got a confidence of 2.14, the confidence bar goes from 2.14 to 2.14. So it allows you to filter within the context of your search. The other thing that I can do,
the big thing in the changes
down here is a clear all, or you can clear the particular status that you're interested in to get back to your main list.
Okay. And that's why we went with a change
I'm
model.
going to
business side people,
finish this
when they're invited to a network change, aren't expected to have that kind of integral knowledge
ATB.com.
of everything we're trying to do. They rely on.
You can put multiple criteria in the search bar, so I can
However,
put
when that work is occurring
closed
during important business activities, when the
and now I will get
of what we're trying to achieve,
it's looked for Ange's email address, and it's looked for the closed confidence or the closed status of the change, and giving me the filter results.
And they can provide some input into better.
And to go back to my list, I can just clear out this field
of getting an implementation created.
Now, unfortunately, again, as I explained, this is minimum viable product. So you've got no way to adjust the fields that appear in your view, even though there are more fields in change than in the change record than are here. It is searching across all of them. It's just presenting these.
We're not in that team mode anymore. Yes,
you also can't adjust.
But really, when you're part of a Scrum group,
we can't do A to Z yet. We can't do by
expertise in your area.
Minimum, maximum, or today's date versus future date. All of that is future enhancements. Right now, this is just basic functionality.
More work requirements.
Searching the requirements is on the second tab, and it's very much in the same vein. The exception is today I don't have the filter capability. That filter box disappears. I only have the search field. And again, although these 4 or 5 fields are listed here from the requirement, there are a lot more. There's 6 pages of requirements documentation that it's searching against. To actually get into a particular change or requirement, all I have to do is click the details.
That are and business side people that are only involved in
the details beside
voice won't be that loud.
The appropriate change
level. You'll have the IT folks who are in it all
now,
the time.
This change we're looking at,
yes,
even though it said it was active in the list, it's a known bug. It's got a confidence score of 0 and it's red because it's closed. There's no more confidence in play. Any confidence that was created by the change has already been assigned, and we're now in a completed state. And by the history of the change, I can actually see how that went. The details of the change are very, very basic, and it's all the high-level stuff is all on one page, the name of it, the unique identifier, and it's not numeric, it's actually based on the last unique 6 digits of the change. The status of the change, when it actually ended, when was the last person or last time it was updated, and then here's all of my information. So what was the business success criteria, who was the requester, what was my closure code, and if it failed or not.
It's not in place yet.
If I want to see the requirements, the work that was done for this change, in this case, this sucker is dead, it's gone. There was actually no work done on the change, and I can't create any new work. All of these slots are grayed out.
For basically anything that,
if I want to see who was involved in the record, I can see that Gibran was the lead.
That ties to the larger change.
He had a confidence of 2.3. I created the record as the initiator. I did not have a positive confidence in the work going forward. Begs the question why I would bother creating the record. So we had to test it to make sure that it would work that way. And then Ben also opted in as the lead on the change, and his confidence was also low. If we're in a change, the templates form you guys won't have on yours. They, it will not. It's for administrators only, so the change management team can create you a template for requirements.
And we may have done a whole bunch of changes.
You guys can't create your own templates at this time.
Because there were other change records and they're gone.
To get back to the search criteria at the top left, I click search. We're back to search. And we're back to the list. Any filter criteria that I put in is gone. It starts me from scratch. I'm just going to go grab a real active change here.
The ability to create this overarching change. So if a project is going to take 2 years, we can create a change that's 2 years long. And under that change, we will put all
do I have any requirements in this one? I don't know that I did. I did. Look at that. All right, so here's my change details. The change status is green. It's an active status. It's got a 2.22 success criteria that's based on the confidence factor of the people who have opted in. So I opted in with a 2. Matt opted in as a lead with a 2.5, which gave us a 2.22 average.
So it might be
at any point in time during the change life cycle, I can go in and I can adjust my confidence in this change. And what will happen is that overarching confidence will adjust if there needs to be an adjustment made. And now it went from 2.2 to 2.4,
for your reputation to evolve.
If I look at who is invited to this change, so there's 2 change managers here, that's not helping anybody. I can then turn around and invite a collaborator.
The great thing about this is once we have that
the collaboration space isn't necessarily intuitive at this point in time. The top piece, when it says invite member by name by member, it means EVA member, someone that you know is already in EVA.
There's no chance they're going to get missed.
So we're going to add Larry.
And we can see.
And down here, there's a little space that says including me because. This is where you can get verbose and say, please.
Work requirements in there. We can see that very visibly, and we can maybe help the train.
I can
have a discussion about how we can
to join at a particular level. I can tell them what the work is about. I can tell them why I have invited you.
Disappear into the ether like they did in Remedy.
And once I've got those areas filled in, I can also add a couple more people here. So let's add.
Everybody's quiet and doing other work in the background, right?
I can send the invitation to those 2 selected users, and they'll both get that same email invite.
So from a workflow perspective,
if the user is not a member of EVA, so they don't have an account yet, or you don't know if they have an account,
it's larger.
You can still invite them down at the bottom as soon as this thing finishes thinking.
On occasion, we can't have
we can create an invitation for users. What you have to do is you have to put in their name.
Because it's just such a one-off that it doesn't make sense to fit it under any sort of
their
other
email
maintenance
address,
activity, or it doesn't fit under a project that exists.
And then
can still
the message
happen,
to the end user. If they are not part of ATB, so if they have an at IBM or an at TELUS or an at Longview or an at whatever.com that isn't ATB, you need to let the change management team know at this point in time we're not being notified. That's an enhancement request for a fast follow activity. We need to add them to that vendor list. They get vetted that way so that we ensure, like I said, there's no duplication of users. We don't have one user with multiple email addresses and separate accounts working in the change process. And same game here. Please send them a message. Although you can put all of this information that they might need in here.
Application changes.
So this is
access changes. There's a whole list of technical requirements. Anything that you would have put in Remedy
and then you can send the invite.
Would become a requirement.
Although you can set the message information in here.
And what you
please
do,
also have the conversation
Remedy,
with them first.
They
should never be invited to the change as they first experience the change management process. They should have been talked to before they received this email. When they get the email, they have the option to go to the change, and you can opt in or opt out. And 9 times out of 10, if I don't know anything about what you're doing, if it feels sketchy or if I don't feel comfortable, especially with that sign-up process, I'm going to opt out of your work. So to get them involved, engaged, talk to them.
That implementer does have to join as a collaborator. We don't allow
on the change site. Any one of these fields can be updated at any point in time. There's an edit change button if you are a collaborator on the change. I can click edit change, the view changes slightly, and now I can
it encourages focus
add the details. And anyone who's been invited or is a collaborator on the change has this capability.
It's not just
the one piece that you guys will be missing is the admin control space, because only change management team closes changes. So closure code and closure notes at the change level will not be there. Your submit button will be at the confidence and success bar.
Define your role within this change.
And then you just submit it, and you'll notice
you might be a leader in the organization, a leader of your group, but you've invited as the change to the change
Make an alignment
some documentation.
Just takes a minute to refresh.
Our process is working as it should be. You might just be an individual contributor in this particular change.
There we go.
You get
2018 Microsoft Server patching 2.0. So the 2.0 I put in was updated.
Your confidence, and
it now shows the last update was the 15th at 10:53 a.m.
The change that we're trying to accomplish, that overarching piece of work. And then
the requirements page shows all of the requirements. I have technical and communication today that have been created for the change. This communication requirement replaces the Google form that we have today for communications. If you have an OCM, when you create a communications component,
like I say, I would say that this confidence adjustment to the negative space is a last resort.
What it asks for is it asks for the lead's name. It can be the change management team. It asks for the lead's email. You'll notice change control at atb.com is suggested as the default. However, if you have an OCM, if you've got a Spark person on your project that's doing the communications, put their name and their email address in here. Once you do that, it wants to know what you're hitting, and if there's an OCM or a Spark plan.
For a lot of teams,
if you say yes,
term, it's going to take a while for reputation.
All of these other fields
to be a large enough gap for that.
I don't need any of that information because the idea is your Spark is taking care of it. If you say no, there is no plan.
Out of the gate, so that
now all of these fields are required. I need you to tell me because change management will actually produce your communication, what it's about, who the user should contact for more information, who they should contact, how should it be communicated. So we've got a drop-down list. We can email it. We can put it on the portal. We can stick it as a front-end service desk message. There's lots of ways we can communicate.
So,
and then if we're doing it to a specific group, drop in the link to the spreadsheet or give us the list of names of people that you want communicated to, and we'll make sure that those people receive the email.
Out of the gate, but we're finding that people are having
that's communication piece for a technical component. To create a new one, we're going to have two options. You're going to have the ability to create from a template. So you have stuff in Remedy. We're actually carrying a lot of those templates over into the EVA environment. If you don't have a template, you can create a new technical requirement.
That piece of work should fall.
When this form pops up, there are 6 pages.
And maybe that's not you that creates that.
Okay, the first one is an overview. And you notice exactly like on the communication component, that completion code is front and center. It doesn't make intuitive sense to have the completion code right off the bat. However, anyone who's trying to review the piece of work, if we have something that's latent, they don't have to go through a whole lot of fields to get to was this particular component successful or not. You can actually just fill it in, and just like in Remedy, it's at the very top of the page. So is this. When you're picking a completion component at the end of the window, this is how you do it. It's exactly like the Remedy ones. If when you're creating the change, you accidentally, or the requirement, you accidentally pick a code, you can't get rid of it. Right now, it's a bug. We have an enhancement request out there to fix it. But the only way to get rid of that code right now, if you accidentally populate it before you mean to, is clicking cancel and then recreating that technical component.
Is when the Jira change automation comes in.
Now, a lot of these fields you guys are familiar with. Short description, nothing new from Remedy. Implementation start time and end time, nothing new from Remedy. The new field on this page is the review cutoff date and time. So this is you setting your own lead time.
Is when you're adding collaborators.
When the lead time or when the review cutoff time hits, so the date and time that you put shows up, it will make a determination through the system whether or not the requirement should go into scheduled status like we discussed.
If it's just you,
there is an enhancement request to make the end time a factor, like it is in Remedy, of how long it takes to implement plus how long it takes to back out plus your start time. It's not there yet, so you kind of got to do the calculation on your own to figure out what the end time is right now to populate it.
It can be the project manager. It can be the Scrum
on the impact tab, this replaces that disaster of the risk calculator that we have today. There was a completely separate website that you had to fill out and copy and paste and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Actually make their
all we need to know now is there a noticeable service impact? The answer is yes. 10-day lead time at least. If you can put your changes 2, 3, 4 months in advance, like sometimes we can do with the patching activities, because we know they're quarterly or monthly and they're always after the second Tuesday. More power to us. We can create them as far in advance as we'd like.
It's not in place just yet. It was kind of backburnered, but we're going to have the ability to relate one work requirement to multiple.
No, it's not. Matt said it's something else.
It reflects reality.
Environments impacted. So is it production? Is it UAT or pre-production? Is it non-production? Change scope has not changed. So we're still looking for these type of technical requirements to be created at a minimum for production. If you're not running agile process through Jira, then you need UAT pre-production changes in EVA. And then if there's a contractual requirement to document non-production, so dev, sit, test, or if you just want to keep track, put in your non-production environments as well. You notice how if I don't put an answer in these fields, they have a little star beside them and they're required, they will go red. So they tell me that I need an answer before this is considered complete and able to be moved ahead.
And move to a scheduled state.
The next 4 questions we split into 2 sections. So the first one is, what's the system impact? So give me the technical impact of the change. Is the system down? Is it going to be degraded? Are we going to see error messages? What kind of strangeness is going to go on at a technical level? Okay. The next piece is the user piece. So how are users impacted? Is it external, which is like ATB Online, all of the people who aren't involved with ATB? Is it internal? So our branch people, our Calgary and Edmonton office people, are they going to see something, or both? Or is there no impact? Nobody's going to notice anything.
So just because I don't have
and then I'm just asking you, what is that actual impact of the work?
Anymore.
The communication requirement I showed you really covers that in detail. I just need a few notes here. So there's going to be an outage to communication. Or users will not experience an impact. This is between 2 and 3 in the morning when the system is not in use. Something of that nature. It's very simple, straightforward. It's not 20 questions that you have to play anymore.
Find the time that works for them and schedule it then.
The change details are very much what you're used to. So is security assistance required? We asked that in the impact statement today. Do they need to do penetration testing? Is there some sort of ports that are opening that need a review, or some sort of access issues that need to be considered? If it's a yes or a no, that's all I need the answer for, and we can ensure that a security person is engaged in your change if you don't already have one.
If the component going sideways.
Piece already exists today in Remedy under the BU details. It's called primary service. Give me the service name, give me the component name. So server, router, application, anything of that nature can go in that component space. The intent here is eventually to have it attached to the CMDB, which is in phase 2 of the ServiceNow project. And we'll have you relate the impacted CI here, and then anyone who's on related service to that CI can be invited as a collaborator on the change. It makes assessing the impact and getting those people engaged a lot easier. Implementation plan, how long does the implementation take? Backup plan, how long does the backup take? This is nothing new from what you guys are doing in Remedy today. The test piece, we'll look at all the work we also have the test tab in Remedy. So was it tested in a non-production environment? Again, not the end of the world, but yes, fully, partially, or testing not available. For a lot of our infrastructure systems, like networks and like that, we don't have non-production. That's fine. It just answers the question. From an audit perspective, it means that it is something we can consider when we're looking at impacts and whether or not we need to have that MCR piece. If you can say it can't be tested, tell me why. If you say it can be tested, this will be grayed out and you won't be able to enter data here. I don't need that information. If you said it can be tested, tell me where that test evidence is located. Can the change be tested after we implement it? A lot of times in the production environment, because we're a bank, we can't fake data. Sometimes we can't test it right away, or sometimes we can't test it at all because the test is actually that it doesn't fail. So again, just yes, no, or it can be done right away. And then how are we going to test it if we can test it at the end of the day?
We should have planned for it. We should have known it was coming.
Implementers. These are based on the ServiceNow assignment groups. So when you use the drop-down list, you can pick any group in there. So I've got the change management team.
Large number of incidents or issues.
Somewhere in this mess, I know I mouse by them.
That were not planned for again, that were not communicated.
I know I've lost them.
We're also looking at that as criteria to failure change.
And then your users.
That's the only space in the technical area where we were looking at failure.
If the implementer or if the group is not part of ATB process today, so if it's a vendor, we have the capability to just indicate that it's a no.
We are allowed at ATB to fail forward, fail fast,
a none
get
selected,
it up and running, fix it.
And then in the drop down, you can put none.
Really
what I would ask if you have to pick that is that we have an internal group that should be liaising with them. So an ATB group or a vendor group that's heavily attached to ATB that should be listed here as an additional implementer that's doing their validation, because there's no way to invite them right now in the tool. Eventually we'll have a way to invite them as implementers. Right now, I don't have that capability. And then last but not least, all the reporting silliness. So your category, subcategory. Do we have related incidents? This eventually between related incidents and problems should be integrated with ServiceNow. Their Jira Sprinter release number, throw that in there, or name. And then the post-implementation review will be attached by the change management team if something goes wrong with the change and we have to do that PIR like we have in the environments today.
Is it a lights on activity?
When you're all done, you click save and it shows up as a requirement down here. And then we'll have the status. So this one is not quite completed yet. It's still in draft status. You can see who my implementer is. And if I click on this, I can actually email the implementer directly if I have questions. If I need to edit the record, there is a cool little edit technical requirements button here. The other buttons are important to learn. The far right one is to cancel the requirement. If we're not doing it anymore, kill it. Okay? This middle one here, it's the little sideways infinity or the link button. This is how you link related changes. So if you have other change numbers that we're going to, because we're doing an implementation across a bunch of stuff, you can actually link to those changes using that bar. And then the very last one, it's not quite ready yet, but it is coming shortly. This is the history. So you can see if it had problems of back and forth, if it was requirements not met, and then it was scheduled, or and then it was back to pending review cutoff, and then it finally made it to scheduled. You can see everything that went along with that particular requirement from an audit perspective.
Of showing a development process for a piece of infrastructure.
All right. So that covers confidence, it covers requirements, it covers change details. We invited a collaborator on your own if you're not already part of a change and it is something you need to be a part of. This join this change button, as long as it's an active status, will be in blue. And you can pick your own role, pick your own confidence level, and join the change on your own. You don't have to wait to be invited. The admin hold piece is what we discussed in the process. This is what change management will use. I will put in a reason why the change is on hold. You can actually see right here my reason so that you can have the discussion with the collaborators. Anyone who goes in can see. And all of my technical requirements are now on an admin hold. The change itself is still active. We haven't stopped the change.
So the workflow,
what we've done is we've asked that it be put on pause until a discussion can be had. All real work is on hold.
Straightforward and simplified.
And when I'm done, I just take it off.
We've talked about. If it
is, it'll take a minute to update, and then we go back to our original statuses.
Then we start adding our collaborators.
The only time that admin hold has no effect is if it's already scheduled. The assumption here is that the work has already been reviewed or had a chance to be reviewed, and the work is allowed now to move ahead. It's already been approved. We don't stop stuff that's already been approved.
With the approach that we have
that is up to the collaborative team if we need to park something immediately.
And we can make the adjustments.
The last piece I want to show you today, because I know we're a few minutes over here, is the notifications bar. This little bell up top will go red if you have information that they're requesting you to review.
That need to be completed in order to make
for example,
and its success
I've got a bunch of changes here. It will tell you the change name.
And those requirements, we're just going to iterate.
And it will tell you what happened. So a requirement was added to this particular change on October 5th.
The opportunity to review and again approve.
And if I want to review that requirement,
passive approval. It's really a reject.
I can now click on view. It'll take me to the change.
If you have a problem with the requirement,
and we'll go take the requirement that was added, and there's my EVA 1389.
Otherwise, it would just move forward.
I've got two that are pending review cutoff, and I've got one that was done as an emergency. And now, based on their implementation start times, I can make the call as to whether or not I need to adjust my confidence or have a conversation with the implementers or the collaborators, rather, on whether or not this work should move forward.
Pieces of work that need to be done, we just iterate.
I can tell you right now, all of these, when they hit their cutoff space, actually they should have, I guess this is an old test change when we were playing. They would have actually gone into
if you put your change out, say 6 months, and
a stop state. Requirements not met at review cutoff because there's only one collaborator on this change.
We'll go into review and we will discuss all of your requirements. We will discuss the change success criteria.
All right.
At the end of that review status, and we'll close off the change.
Oh, there is one more thing I need to show you.
In that closure space,
how do I create a change?
Every collaborator and implementer,
just like we did search for change in EVA, create a change is done from this home screen.
Or lose reputation based on their their relative scope.
It's got two sides to it.
Success.
The reason that we do that is because if you are creating an error and you need to type break, you have your break option over on this side of the screen. You can also turn the voice on and off. So if you're actually creating a change on a mobile device or on a laptop, you have the capability to use the voice instead of actually typing and zooming in and zooming out and all the rest of that. This side of the screen is really the form space, and you can click in and do fill out the basics of the forms. There's a change name. What are we trying to accomplish here in layman's terms? Who is the requester in today's world in Remedy? Because we're so locked down, the requester is also the first implementer. That doesn't have to be the case anymore. Your project manager can be the requester. The business side person who actually asks for the work can be the requester. We can have a BA, an architect. We can have anybody with the requester. It doesn't have to be you anymore, although it can be if you want. And then when is the work going to be completed? Not just one point in time piece, but when is the change actually done? Is it next quarter? Starting next quarter? Is it end of the year? Is it whenever the project's done? What does that date look like? And it can be adjusted after you put the time in, for sure. Second tab that you have access to is the business success criteria. So this is what we were talking about. What is the business value of this change? Okay, from a project perspective, we have business goals. Those are very easy to populate. From a maintenance perspective, we have directives that we're supposed to meet, say 97% uptime, no unexpected or unintended major end user consequences. So no unexpected outages, no weird functionality without notification, the whole 9 yards. And then so you don't have to opt into the change yourself. The person who creates it has the ability to set their confidence score right from the form. You guys won't have access to the admin controls, as I was explaining when we showed you an existing change, because that's all the closure code stuff. Changes are closed by the change management team, not by the support teams.
The requirement lifecycle.
All right, that's it.
So this is very much like the Remedy space. Again, you have the draft state, where a whole lot of people can go into your draft record and start building out your implementation, your test plans, and your backup plans, and all of the stuff that we used to see in Remedy. Once it's out of draft, so all of the
we have not allowed copy change because we have so many problems within the Remedy environment. People forget to update their environments. They forget to update the scope of the change. It becomes a bit of a nightmare. So instead of copy, we do have the ability to create you a template for repetitive work. And those templates can be reused so that you're just filling in the particular environment, you're filling in the particular servers or transports or pieces of work that you're doing. I don't have the ability right now to copy it.
So if you've
in theory, in the future, when we have integration to Jira, we'll have the ability, based on that Jira task, to populate it automatically in EVA. So we won't have to worry about the copy function because it'll be working right in the Jira space, or in your case, in the active control space, that will create the Jira piece that populates EVA.
Change. If required fields are missing or data is
all right, we are 12 minutes over. Sorry, guys.
The tool will automatically move the requirement to requirements not met at review cutoff.
Yes.
This means your work is not scheduled. You cannot implement. The only time you are allowed to implement is in a scheduled state.
So your templates will be created for your BAU activities in EVA right now. But if you look at the basis of the process, we are now a yes until it is no. Let me just pull up that slide again. So really, BAU becomes
scheduled status means that everybody was confident in the work. Means that all of the documentation
designation. We could put changes that don't have to go through approval process that go right from creation into schedule. And we are. I'm not saying we're not considering it. However, it begs the question, if the change is in a stop status, why would I do a BAU for something that has been stopped? Why would I do any work on it for something because something has been, the change itself has been stopped? So I don't know that we will. We will review it over the first quarter and see if it becomes a necessity. What we do have, though, is we will create your templates in the tool. So when you're creating a requirement, you'll be able to go in and just break this one here.
Start at an end time. We expect you to stay within that window. If the requirements aren't met, you go into the tool and you figure out what was missing. So did some implementers not join? Was there
So your
documentation?
BAUs should be, in theory,
error?
mostly used for
Fill them in, and it will
maintenance
go back,
activities.
adjust
You
your
should have
dates
an
and your
overarching
review
maintenance
cutoffs, and then we'll
change.
go back and depending
But
on
if I
your
just go
cutoff,
into
and we
here
can just cycle through. It's not like the requirement is canceled.
and I go to requirements,
If
and under create, there's a create from template. You'll be able in the drop-down list to choose your BAU template, and at least it will auto-populate that template where you can fill in the basics of the information to start. And then just make your review period very short if you want to do it right away. Like if it's a BAU, I don't have a problem with your review periods being very short. Again, it's that collaborative model discussion. We just don't have anything that's necessarily pre-approved because it's all pre-approved.
Person who brought this up is resolved. No other work
Makes
can
sense?
occur on the change that hasn't already been scheduled. Okay. The admin hold does not stop.
I think it'll come clear once you start working in the system, yeah. And that kind of brings us back to the what's next slide. So what I'd like you guys to do, we're live on Wednesday, but over the next couple of days when you have some minutes, get into Eva, create some test changes in the test environment, create test changes, create test work requirements, see and feel what the piece looks like. Talk to your leadership about what we're going to do for these overarching change pieces. So like for IBM specifically, I recommend that we either have at least a quarter, if not an annual patch activity, and all of your patch work requirements go into that. And again, that also helps with the failure space because requirements don't fail, changes fail. If you have a one-to-one relationship and your requirement fails, your change is also done. And you're going to lose reputation. So I don't recommend the one-to-one to anybody at all. Unless there's a distinct need for it, don't do it. Okay, same thing with RCM uplifts and the rest of those types of changes. I'm looking at stuff that is an overarching piece. So RCM uplift 2018, all of your RCM stuff goes underneath that. For projects that you're involved in, for doing server stand-ups and all the rest of that information, that should be under a project change. And the project change should already exist. The project manager should have awareness of it. If they haven't created it yet, work with them to get the project change created, and then start slotting your technical work requirements underneath.
Time to put in the record and add your approvers, add your implementers. Your
all right. Any other questions, folks?
To a scheduled status
I apologize.
as per normal process rather quickly.
The session is recorded and actually will be posted on the training site under videos and the how-to pieces. So if you have to come back and review, absolutely. We also have some point-in-time videos about specifically searching and specifically creating stuff. It'll be going up in the next 2 days, so look for those as well.
You indicate, and then the tool will automatically set this to latent emergency status.
So we have a whole lot of options for you in the email that you've received, and you'll receive a follow-up email after this training session. There is a Google Chat session if you have access to Google that you can throw your questions into. There is email the change management team. You can IM us directly. You can call us on the change site.
Once it's in latent,
just going to bounce back there real quick.
If you do
there is a feedback button down at the bottom,
like even BAU activities. That is
and it's a Google form when you're filling out the form, and this should be accessible to anybody in the world. Again, it'll ask you if you want to ask about process or tool, and then you can kind of detail the question that you have. We're also looking for suggestions. This is a living site that the collaborators are needed to help build, so it works for you. So if you have suggestions, tell us what we can do. We'll put it into our Jira thing as an enhancement request, or if you find a weird bug, things aren't working right, throw that in too, and we'll actually get that all fixed up. In the first quarter here, we're not going to make a lot of changes, so I'm expecting there's going to be a few issues. It is minimum viable product, but we do have a lot of plans for additional reporting, additional communications, additional look and feel, because some of the, as you notice, it looks very basic right now. We've got a UX guy who's really working hard on that, so expect those pieces to come out at you fairly shortly.
Good. It is a painful process at the moment from a manual perspective.
All right.
So I don't have
Thank you for joining us today, folks. Again, if you have any questions, please, all of those options to reach out to the change management team. So I'm just going to reiterate one more time, please create all of your test stuff, all of your playthings in the EVA test environment. Even though the URL says EVA prod, it is incorrect. It is the test. And then only use the production for real production changes. We're live Wednesday, so if you got stuff, you can move over between now and then, please feel free to reach out to the change team if you need help. We'll help you make the decision about change, work requirement, how to logically set stuff up.
One of the things that came up when we were doing the review for closure of the change requests earlier.
You guys have a great week.
Was the whole success criteria for the change request, and there was a lot of confusion between everybody on the call pretty much regarding that. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that, or the importance of the success criteria, what you're looking for in there, because I know with my initial one that I did, there was some, I was fairly vague in mine, but so maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, maybe provide a little bit of clarity. I don't know if the same people were on the call are on the call now, but.
Absolutely. I do have a note on the one slide here that I'm sharing is working with your leadership and the project managers and your scrum masters and your product managers to create the appropriate changes, those overarching pieces of work that make sense for the systems that you're working on. So a maintenance activity, does it make sense to do it monthly, quarterly, annually? And if we're doing it in that space, what is the value of that maintenance work from the project perspective, or from projects are easy because projects have we're just aligned to the goal of the project that we're actually the business objective of the project that we're actually trying to initiate. But maintenance activities are vaguer. What is the goal from that lights on activity space? Is it minimize downtime? So is there a certain percentage of uptime that we can measure over that maintenance period? Is there an adoption, or is there an unplanned outage percentage? Is there a number of incident tickets or service requests that are resolved within SLA or SLO? There's a lot of that whole management measurement piece that the business is really interested in, that really the technical guys aren't expected to know. That's why we really need the collaborative piece to kick in and to talk to those leaders of the initiatives of those systems to figure out what they're looking for. When let's go into the dev.atbeva.com development environment, and let's play around for a bit here, and we will. Why did I stop share? Hang on, and we'll kind of deep dive it a bit. So if I exit the presentation at this point, and let's go over to Eva. If you do not already have an account at dev.atbeva.com, it will ask you to set up your keys again. It is different from the production environment, so you do have to set up the pieces for each environment. In that way, there's no confusion as when you're creating records or whatever. We ensure that data stays segregated. It also means that you don't have to take part in environments that you don't want to. Hopefully, most of you have signed up for this, and you're seeing the same screen kind of that I'm seeing when you go to sign in at dev.atbeva.com. You should get the cool little, if I just type break in here, we'll have Eva saying, how can I help you? Is everyone able to reach the site and able to play along at home? All's quiet, so I'm guessing things are going well. So let's start with creating a change. So the two systems in Eva, I guess we could talk about the AI a bit first. So the AI, I'm going to say she's more like an 8-9-year-old now. She used to be like a 4-year-old. You had to be very specific in what you told her. And I still maintain that to a certain extent. Really, all you need to tell her, even though she can do full sentences, is you need a verb and a context. So we're going to do something like create change. If you get something strange, if this, say, didn't come up for you, if you got some sort of weird little definition thing or something that came up, or you ended up for some reason in another tool, the way to get back to the home screen in the Eva communication line, just type break. And she'll take you right back to the very beginning, and we can start all over. For example, if I type it in min here, There's a lot of things in the tool that have admin. So she's going to think about it for a minute, and then she's going to give me a definition here. There we go. So it's used for financial reporting, margining, fee, loans, CH, offset. That means nothing to me. I know that that's an issue. I'm not getting anywhere with that kind of response. So I'm just going to type break, and we're back to, okay, let's start over. How can I help? And we're going to try again. So I could try something like administration instead. You guys won't have access to that, but that's our reporting piece right now. We can go back to what we started here. We'll go back to create change. Changes are very, very straightforward. There's like 4 fields that you need to fill in. What's the name of the change? Give it something that's unique, that describes the work that's being done in that period of time. So it might be, something like CMDB project. A description of the work. So at an overarching level, what are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day? So this is going to be something like a configuration database in place that connects to all support tools. Who asked for the work? Now in Remedy, you're probably used to putting your own name in here. That was kind of the way it worked because people, due to licensing constraints, didn't have access. But you can actually put who on the business side wants this work, and they'll get invited to the change. They can follow along at home. They can be part of the discussion as we work through the change. You can put in your product manager, your PM, your Scrum Master, whatever makes sense, your leader. I do not recommend putting yourself in. Unless you're the one who's actually requesting the work. I'm going to add Matt because I'm just that kind of guy. It's asking for an email address, and that's all it will accept, so that it can actually send a note out. And this way, if you're working, say, with someone external, they will still get that invitation. The system will know who they are based on the email address. The last field that we have to fill in on this first page is the end date. So when are we expecting all of the work for the CMDB project to be done? So I'm going to put 01/31/2020. This is going to take us about a year to get this sucker up and running. And we'll end it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a 12-hour clock, not a 24-hour clock. However, it does recognize 24-hour numbers. So if I put 17 in here, it switches it to a 5. It's smart. It's not smart enough to put in the PM, but at least it knows the difference in that 24-hour space when I'm putting in time. If you don't use Chrome, if you're one of these Firefox users, you have to enter the time in a UTC format. You won't get prompted the way I was prompted with this. It just says enter the time. And you have to go year, month, day, T, and then your 24-hour time clock, or it won't save. When you go to click submit on the change, it will just disappear. Best recommendation, because Firefox is not supported at ATB, is don't use Firefox. But you guys can see this over here. This is how you need to enter it if you are working in a browser that is not supported with ATB, and we haven't configured it to fill in the ask for particular month, day, year format. Okay. The next button takes us to the last page that we have to fill in. So business success criteria, and this is what they were talking about here. So what we're looking for from business success criteria is not your point-in-time implementation. I do agree when people put in no unexpected outage, okay? But I'm going to flag that. So when you put in no unexpected outage, well, it might be an outage that didn't have a service impact. Okay, but you said no unexpected outage, and we weren't expecting the outage, so do I fail the change? Because technically your success criteria is met. So what I might put instead is no unexpected service impact. That way, if we took out a server where there's redundancy, if we had some sort of outage at 4 o'clock in the morning where nobody noticed, the service is not really impacted. It was a blip. and we were able to recover from it, I don't have to fail the change. So that's really the underpinning IT requirement that's going to be there whether you put it there or not. The next business success criteria should be based around the achievement piece. So it would be the project success criteria. A success of the project is going to be able to be entered and measured right here, not just in some standalone spreadsheet. Under your Scrum or under the product that you're working with, do we have certain things like 97% uptime? Are we going to adoption increase of 12%? Okay. And we can put, actually we'll throw in here, increase 12% with the end date. Let's put that there. Make sure that this is time-based. So 97% uptime over the period of the change. It should be time-based and it should be measurable. Those are the two biggies in there. The goal should be SMART. If you put in some sort of vagary, like what things that I have seen, I've seen requirement success will determine the success of the change. Okay. If you put something like that in there, is it the end of the world? Well, not really, no. However, you're not really telling me what business value your change is providing. It's a lot of make work. You know how I show requirement success without paying a lot of money is I don't have requirements. I just cancel the change. We don't do any work. Same thing with that whole outage thing. I don't need to pay people to do work that may result in an outage to get a 0% outage issue. If the system keeps on running as designed or as is, or if it's not up yet, I don't have an outage problem. So it's not enough of a success criteria. In this space, this is a vagary. So if one of your requirements gets canceled or fails, even though we have fail fast, fail forward at ATB, if they're not successful, you have told me your requirement success determines success of a change. I've got 2 failed changes in there, or 2 failed requirements. I have to fail your change. So be specific when you are planning your requirements and talk to the product manager, talk to the leadership, talk to your project manager, because it should be more of a friendly business-facing goal rather than some sort of particular IT cutoff that we're looking for. I'm not expecting support teams to be able to fill in a lot of business success criteria. I expect support teams more often than not to be asking the project manager, the scrum master, the product manager, what's your change number, as opposed to setting it up. Does that make sense?
Just one thing that stood out from the meeting on Monday regarding this piece is the confirmation from business area, product owner, project manager at the end of it that it's been successful. So
Correct.
It's just something to flag at the beginning for anyone doing these things, that if you're putting something on there, that at the end when we need to close it, that you guys require something from whoever the owner is of this to provide some kind of
So the way that we deal with that is the requester gets invited to those review meetings. So they should be the one that is helping you determine what the success criteria looks like, because they're the ones requesting the work. Okay? If you put yourself as requester, you're going to have to do a lot of follow-up. And that's where we're falling apart in that review space, is the requester should be on those review calls along with you as the initiator or implementers to discuss whether or not the business criteria was met. Okay. Does that make sense?
But and that's fine. Okay, so you don't actually need something in writing then at the end.
I don't need something in writing. If those people are on the call and they agree that service impact is good, we will still ask them the same questions. How to and when it comes down to an audit space, audit's going to say prove it, but we may be able to prove it through tool usage. We may be able to. It may be somewhere that exists already. I don't need additional information. I just need a link or something to it, or I can put in the closure notes where I can find that proof. If it was something like a 97% uptime, I've got that measured already. I can tell what my outage percentage looks like for the change. If it's an adoption increase, that's usually some sort of spark percentage that can be proved by a survey or something they sent out. That work is already done. I don't need something additional to show that that we were successful. It's only in those states where they're kind of questionable criteria where I need some sort of proof, especially if you're basing it on the requirements down below.
Okay.
The last piece that you need to do when you're submitting a change is you need to put in your confidence factors. So rather than having to go in and join the change after the fact, as the initiator of the change, we want to know, you've been asked to put this together. How confident are you? The bar starts at a 2. You can go all the way up to 3. If you're very confident in the work, you can go all the way down to 1 if you're not. I would say that if you are putting in a confidence of anything less than 2, you should probably be asking yourself, why am I creating this change? Because we're starting out behind the 8 ball right off the gate. If you've been told to create it, maybe you're not the right person to create it if you don't have confidence in the work. Okay? If you're putting yourself up at a 3, is this something that may have already been defined? Because we already are aware of the work. I can see it being a 3 if it's a repeat of, say, a quarterly piece of work that we've been doing over and over and over again. But 3 is always a little bit on the overly optimistic side to me to start. You can adjust your confidence at any point in time, but I'm not sure 3 is the best place to start. And then last but not least, most of you won't have access to this. This is the change management for closure when we do the review. There's a submit button that should be on your second screen here. And all you have to do is click it. It thinks for a hot minute, and then it loads up the change screen. In your change screen, you'll have the name of the change. You'll have a unique identifier. That's your new change number. You'll have the confidence, and this bar changes color. If the confidence in the change drops below 2, the bar will change color. How do I adjust my confidence in this overarching change? What I need to do is I need to go to the confidence tab in the change, and there's my slider bar. So I'm going to bounce over, well, let's make this sucker non-confident. So I'm going to update. I have successfully updated my confidence, and you'll notice right away the confidence bar in the change updated. The change will now not put any requirements in a scheduled state until this gets resolved and we're at confidence 2.0 or higher. Someone has joined my change like a crazy person. Okay, so you're...
I got invited to the change like a crazy person, so I decided to do it.
You're a little ahead of the game.
My rep didn't quite push it up to over 2.
Yeah. So what you guys may not have noticed is it was in draft status. And as soon as Matt, as the requester, he got an invite to join the change. As soon as he joined, the change went into active. What active means is now we can start the development side. We can put in these work requirements and start doing work. What's going to hold us back right now is the confidence factor in the change. Now, why did Matt's confidence not influence the change enough to bring it back up to a 2? Let's look at the numbers. As the initiator, as the creator of the change, I have agreed that I agree with the work and I have a huge stake in the game. I've put the most reputation in right now. I've got 10 of my personal reputation in on this change, and I disagree that it's going to go well. So I have a huge impact on the change right now. Matt has put himself in as an individual contributor. He's only going to do one little piece of review work on the change, or as the requester, he just requested the overarching piece. He's not actually going to do the development. So he's only invested 2 of his reputation in this change. And even though his reputation or his confidence is at 2.5, these 2 together do not have enough to bump my 1.4 times 10. So he has to have a conversation with me to update my confidence at least a little bit before the change is actually going to move to a state where it can be updated. And in fairness, as you can see, what I just did is I didn't say that I was 100% confident in this change. I still think there's a potential we could fail. There's still some work that needs to be done here. I got to see some requirements being successful before I will move myself to fully confident in the work. But I moved it up far enough so that the confidence and the work in the change can continue. As a collaborator on a change, You have access to all of the change details. So if we needed to update, say, the business success criteria or the scope of the project, you can click on the edit change button and change all of these fields. The history flags about who's doing the edits. It doesn't display publicly right now, but it's in the back end. We can figure out who did what and when. You can go in and change any of the fields as long as you're a collaborator on the change. The only thing you can't do is close off the change. And once you've updated any details you want, you just click the submit button again, and it will make whatever edits that you've put forward. In the requirement space, this is where you start building out your work. There's two options under requirements. The first one is to create a new technical requirement from a blank form, just like you did in Remedy. Pull up a new change ticket, away you go. Answer all the questions, answer all the required fields, the process moves forward. The other option that we have that is turned off in production right now because we had some issues with the workflow was from a template. So if you have BAUs, if you have repetitive work, we can template it for you. Coming up here shortly. And then you can just pick the template and put in a couple of key details like the server or the application that you're working on, and it will just move itself ahead because all of the work is standard. It's already known. From a business as usual or standard change perspective, we used to have BAUs in Remedy that were kind of auto-scheduled. But if you look at the process the way that we have developed it today, everything is a yes before it's a no. Everything's a BAU. We can still template your BAU stuff so that there's awareness that if it's got a BAU in the template name, it can be scheduled during business hours. That will help the review process so people won't have concerns. But really, there's no such thing as pre-approved anymore. It is kind of already pre-approved, and it will be stopped if someone has a problem. When I go to create a new technical requirement, all of the information that you see in the form that pops up is just like your remedies. So you've got a completion code, which is odd. You'll notice that it's not accessible even to me. That is for end of change. So that if people who are reviewing your completed requirements, they don't have to tab through a bunch of stuff. It's right there. It was kind of like in Remedy, it was the very top of the screen as well. It may not make sense initially why it's on the front page, but that's why. It's to limit the amount of clicks that people have to see how things went for an implementation. Short description is exactly what you would put in Remedy. So in plain language, what are we doing? What is your review cutoff time? So when is the tool going to make the decision about whether or not this work is approved? How much time do you need to give your collaborators who are going to get notified when this requirement is created to review and decide whether or not this is acceptable and should move ahead? Our recommendation is that it is the cutoff happens during business hours, and that it is a minimum of 4 hours before your actual change start time. It doesn't have to be, however. If we had to do something in a rapid exception process kind of thing where everybody's on a call and we know the work needs to be done, you can have the review cutoff. Today's the 15th. 2019, we can do. You can put your review cutoff right up until your implementation start time. If you put it past the implementation start time, it will be moved back to the implementation start time. The only reason that I don't recommend this, especially if you're doing work after hours, is that you won't know if your work is scheduled and approved until you're supposed to be starting your work. You have no time to resolve issues. You've got no way to go back and fix it before you're supposed to be doing your work. So give yourself some lead time wherever possible. Even 15 minutes is definitely gives you the option to make edits in the document. Second tab, instead of a risk calculator that you used to have in the old days, you used to have to go through 12 questions about how I'm going to fail, and then you had to paste all of the results of how you were going to fail into the change ticket, and it would tell you arbitrarily that we feel this is a risk 2 or a risk 1 or blah blah blah. Not particularly helpful and not really relevant. We have a better capability when the CMDB piece is in for flagging critical system components. especially when you're doing work that involves an outage. But right now, what we're looking for from that risk perspective is whether or not you're going to have a noticeable service impact. If you say yes to this question, what we need is a communication component filled out. Okay, we're requesting a 10-day lead time as well so that we can arrange an MCR, bring a whole bunch of people into the room and have a discussion about how the service is going to be impacted. It may also impact your windows. So if you're impacting the bank, especially, banking services, our ability to transact, you are limited to that Sunday morning window. Otherwise, we can have a discussion about when your application and the business thinks that you can take the system down. We'll discuss that during the MCR meeting. What environments are you hitting? UAT, pre-prod, are we hitting production? Or if you're working with a vendor that has a contractual obligation to have a change record for everything they do, including your development, test, SIT environments, you can still identify them in here. They will not be part of audit. We will remove those records when we're put them forward for an audit purpose. But there is the capability to indicate a development or a SIT change if you really want, or requirement if you really want. The next two pieces are really, what's the technology impact? So what systems are you hitting? How are they going to be impacted? Is the system not going to be able to send reports or communicate to other systems during the time frame of the change? Is it going to be down? Is it going to be slow? What is the technology piece that's going on here during and after your implementation? And then the user side, the people side. Who's impacted? Internal users, external users, meaning customers, or there's no impact at all. And you can pick multiples. And then what is that impact to them, if it's applicable, if there is something. If you indicated no impact, this field normally could stay blank. What you'll notice here is it does say it has a 5-character minimum. The reason that it does right now is because for some reason the tool is, even though it doesn't have a little star, it's taking it as a required field. So you got to put something in there, even if it's just no impact, at least 5 characters of something. The configuration item. So this is going to be tied to our upcoming CMDB, but right now it's an open text field. Tell me the service name, the system name, the piece of hardware that you're working on, whatever makes sense in this space so that I can understand what you're hitting. And this may help us drive further impacts in case you've missed something here. It may flag people to understand, oh, they missed this. They're also going to hit this system as well. Do we need some sort of security review? So are you doing some sort of network or firewall or application update that may impact people's access? And security needs to be sure that ATB is safe when we make those changes. Okay? If not, no. What is your implementation plan? You can fill it out here. It's a free text form, and there's these cool little lines on the right-hand side. If you just click and drag, you can make this as big as you need it to be for your implementation planning. That way you're not always looking at 2 lines or just 2 lines. Same deal, it's a required field. There's a 5-character minimum. You can put a link to an implementation plan. If you've got it on your SharePoint site, if it's in Jira, Confluence, if it's somewhere else that it has been built, I don't need you to reiterate it here. Just give me the link that we will have access to so it can be audited. How long does it take? When you're looking at implementation duration, the system doesn't automatically add that information together. So keep in mind, this should be implementation time plus test time is your implementation duration. Your backout plan, if there is one, it should be indicated in here. And then again, how long does the backout take? If you're at the application layer, there's a peer review section as well. A lot of the data folks are using this right now. So if we need to know who peer reviewed your implementation plans, let us know who that person is by their email and what date they reviewed it. On the testing tab, were we able to test the change? And if so, how well? If you were able to test it, this field becomes active. Tell me where that test evidence is located. Is it in Jira? Is it in Confluence? Is it in Jenkins? Where did you put it? It may be in Box. We do have change locations set up specifically for SAP implementations right now. If you don't have a place to store your test evidence other than, say, a team drive that might be locked down, let us know. We can give you a box location, because that's version control that's set up. It's accessible to everybody. We can definitely get you in there. If you indicated the testing was only partial or not available, this field becomes locked, and the why was testing not available field becomes available, and I need to know why we couldn't test. Then can we test it post-implementation? Yes, no, or sometimes we can't do it until somebody does something, because you can't spoof data in a banking system. So it might not be right away where we will know if the change is successful. And then how are you going to validate? How are we going to know that this works? This is all of the cool little reporting info pieces that we have for the last two tabs. So implementers. The support group 1 and implementer group 1 are required. Everybody else is optional. You got to put in at least one group. If they are not part of ATB, because this group list is pulled from ServiceNow, it is our foundation source of data for groups and for users. You can use none selected. So if you have an external vendor who's not part of the tool, you can use none selected, and then their implementer is none. If it is one of your groups, we expect that someone who is actually doing the implementation is actually their name goes in the change, and then they will be expected to join the change as a collaborator. They'll actually get an email saying that you've been added as an implementer, you have to join the change, blah, blah, blah. And the last two fields, because we want to be sure that you're filling out something on every form or every tab so that you don't forget stuff. Category and subcategory, again, just like in Remedy. So if I'm working on change management or some sort of ITSM tool, I would use the service management designations. I can relate incident records. I can relate problem records. I can put your JIRA and sprint release designation in here. And then after the change is over, if there was a failure, I can put the post-implementation review form link in here as well. Don't put anything in this form or in this line at the start when you're creating the record. If you look, it says it's looking for the response URL from a submission email. Do not enter any data in here unless you have a post-implementation review URL after the work is complete. If you put something in here before the scheduled status occurs, it won't go into scheduled because it's going to be confused. Once all that's done, we just click save. And our change, our reputation technical component is now in a working status. You will notice that it is pending collaborator. What that means is Ms. Livingston has not joined the change yet. So if I go to the confidence tab, she is not a member of the change. The requirement will not move forward into a review cutoff state until she actually says yes to the email she received and joins our change as an implementer. To create a communication component, very similar. So we said there was going to be an outage. We need to tell somebody about the outage. Or maybe I have a Spark person who's taking care of the communication. If I have a Spark person who's taking care of it, throw their email in there. If you don't, then you can just throw in the change management team. And you notice there's a prompt in there about who our default is. And our default email is changecontrol@atb.com. So we'll get notified that you need a communication. Then we have the same questions that you always had to answer anyway. So what service is being impacted? Is there an organizational change management plan? If you're contacting change management, probably no. If you actually say yes to this, you'll notice that all the rest of these are grayed out. They don't need to be filled in anymore because they will be taken care of by your Spark communication plan. If you say no, I need all the rest of this filled in. So does it include an outage? When does it start? When does it end? Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Why are we doing this? Who should users contact for more info? So if there's a support team, or if there's a project manager, or if you just want them to contact change management, that's fine. How should it be communicated? We have multiple options. We can post it on the internet. If it's going to be a big outage, we can have them put a service desk from front end message on, so end users are going to see it, and they'll get a note when they call a service desk. Oh, hey, by the way, this is going to be down until 6 a.m. Call us back then if it's not up. Or I can email a specific user list if it's going to be targeted communication, targeted user impact. You need to provide that user list or those email addresses in this form. Otherwise, I don't need to know. If you don't pick that targeted communication piece, I don't need that last piece filled in. And then you just save it. When you get a notification to review a change, the things that you're looking for is you're going to go into the change details right out of the gate. Let me just refresh this so I get a clean view. Fastest thing on 2 wheels, or not? I blame Matt.
Yeah, it's entirely my fault. I'm a wizard.
Thank you.
I can control these things.
I know. It's establishing secure connection.
The weather too. That's all me. Stock market, me.
What about Trump? Is that your fault?
Oh yeah, entirely. Everything's my fault. Cold strife, hunger.
We appreciate your honesty.
Oh, you're very welcome.
There it comes. Sometimes it's slow, just FYI. Even in production, we found that when you are especially clicking on a link from an email, sometimes it takes a hot minute for the thing to load, but it does load now. It doesn't fail anymore. Having said this isn't going to load, is it? I wonder if Ben's pushing something. Come on, machine. Work it out. Doesn't want to play with me. Are you able to load dev, Matt? Or is it not working well?
Let me take a look here.
I wonder if he's doing something.
So far, I'm just getting spinny blue wheel. No, I'm loading up. Yeah, I'm fine.
That's good.
Try it again.
I'll kill it.
Maybe got caught in a crummy time.
That could be, yeah. Weird. I got nothing. It has gone the way of the dodo. Oh well. Let's pull up prod here instead. Or maybe my whole computer will just go to sleep. How about that? I don't know why it's so slow. I apologize, guys. I don't know what's going on with my system. So we've hit the highlights of change. We've hit the highlights of requirements. Matt, are you able to share your screen? If this isn't coming up, can you? I just want to go through inviting collaborators and how to join.
Yeah, sure. Let me just pop that up here. Can you guys see my screen yet or no?
Yeah, it's coming up. Perfect.
Hold on a second.
So if you want to just search change, let's find one that you're not involved in right now. We'll show them how to join.
Yeah, sure. Just one second. What's going on? Hold on.
Oh, we'll load.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Something's up. Hold on one second. I think that should work. Awesome. You guys see me now?
Yep, I can see now.
Okay, so what did you need me to do? Sorry.
Oh, if you can go into a change that you're not on.
Into a change not on. That's active?
Yeah, active's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So when you're invited to a change, you will review the business success criteria. And then if you're invited because it's a requirement, say you've been added as an implementer, I would go into the requirement space and I would look at the work that is planned. In this particular case, there's no requirements that have been added just yet. So if you've been added as an implementer, make sure that it is work that you would actually implement and do. Make sure that if there are conflicts, if there's multiple requirements going, if you have any sort of expertise around it that you can use to make an informed decision, I would look at all of the elements of the change to make sure that you are making a good decision before you opt in. To join a change, once you've determined that you have a stake in the game and the work that is being done actually makes sense to you, there is a little blue button up top that you can just click to join this change. And it's very much like from that change creation space that I showed you. So you've got your slider bar for the confidence score. It starts at a default of 2, but you can move it down or up. The reason in this space where down might be worthwhile is especially if you're in a more lead role for the work and you need to show that you have issues with what is going on. It is a perfect way to document that there's a problem with what is happening. Join the change and put in a lower confidence score. Choose your role. It has to be lead or individual contributor. If you don't choose a role right now, there's an issue with the tool. It will just blank out. And you won't actually have joined the change at all. You need to choose a role and have it displayed. So you can pick one, Matt. If you want to choose lead, they haven't seen lead yet. They saw your individual contributor. And it'll have a little green drop down that says you have successfully joined the change. And then we can go into the confidence tab and we'll see Matt there. And he's joined as a change. You'll notice individual contributors have a minimal reputation attached to it, usually for just point-in-time work. Your creator or the initiator has the most at the moment. And then your lead, the people who are driving the efforts. So I would assume requesters to be leads. I would assume people who are actually driving development plans, PMs and things of that nature would end up being leads on your change. They have 5 points of reputation out of 100 that they put in to balance the change. If you want to see how your reputation is doing, you can click on that little reputation button off to the side. And it will show you every change that you were involved in, what level you engaged in, how many points you have. And then at the very top, it will show you your overall confidence. So right now, Matt's total reputation is 110.2 in the dev system, so he's got a little bit more than what we normally start with, which is 100. His current available reputation is 50.2, so he's involved in a lot of active changes at the moment. Where this becomes important in a reputation area for those of you who care about math is that 50.2, if it hits 0, while you can still join changes, your contribution to the change will your influence or impact on the change will be nothing. It is really based on that available reputation, with the idea in mind that you're spread too thin. You're involved in too much active work, and you can't actively participate effectively across that many changes. Now, we'll review that because we may have to up the minimums as this process gets a little longer in the tooth. But right now, that 100 baseline seems to be working very well. If we need to invite someone, right next to the join the change is invite a collaborator. So let's say you were invited to a change and you're the wrong person. You've got someone else who needs to be invited to the work. Or you notice they don't have a security person on here and you know who's working in your Scrum. Or we need to invite a lead to this because your boss should know about the work that's going on. If they are in EVA, this top piece that Matt is filling out right now, you can start typing their name, start with first name, and it will pull up the list of users that we have in EVA today. And you just click on them, and you'll notice it says selected members to add underneath, and he's added me. You can also add Dan Robinson too for fun. You can add multiple people if they are already members of the tool. And you notice there's a little red thing there that says including you because. You need to put in a custom communication. You need to tell the person why you're inviting them or tell the group why you're inviting them so they get some sort of feel. It's not just kind of a blind invite with just basic information to it. Tell them that you need them to review a particular requirement. Tell them that you're inviting them because they have a stake in an attached system. Any particular reason why you're bringing them into the change. When you're done, you click the select invites to select users. Don't use the done button down in the bottom right. That just closes out the window. It doesn't send anything. You actually have to click the send invitation button. And you'll get a little green pop down that says successfully invited users to collaborate. Now, let's say you're inviting a vendor or you're inviting somebody who isn't in the tool today. In that collaborative space, if you scroll down to the bottom, it says can't find the right user, create invite. If you use the drop down there, and this can only be done one user at a time, put in their email address, their name, and your custom message to them again, why you need them to become involved in ATB's change process. And then you can send the invite out one user at a time. If they do not have an @atb.com email address, you also need to notify the change management team so we can add them to our backend database. So that when they join the change, they'll actually be able to see the records. It's how we're managing and ensuring that people aren't using Hotmail and Gmail addresses just out of hand. We are very careful about our external email address access to internal ATB systems. Okay. And when you're all done, you can either click cancel or done either way, and it does away with that whole pop-up screen. You'll notice that when you have done collaborator invites that way, under pending invitations, it will show the people that you have added, and you'll show who's invited them. It will also show if they have declined. If they actually accept the invitation, they will move up into the members of the change space. The only time an invitation will not show up in that pending invitation space is if you've added them as an implementer on a technical requirement right now. We do have a story in to have that added, but it's not functional just yet. The other thing you will notice, if you can go back to search, Matt, and just click on find a change that's got some requirements. Actually, that end-to-end prod test for ProdFix has requirements. Something I'll flag for you right out of the gate on the requirements tab. You'll see this cool little requirement ID. So we have a requirement number now that's unique. It's only in development at the moment. It has not been moved to production. We're hoping to move it tonight. I've tested it all day yesterday and today, and hopefully we can actually get her into the production space for you tonight. But when you're working in production, you won't see that. You'll see the rest of it, but not that just yet. All right, so we've talked about invitations. We've talked about creating changes, creating requirements. The last piece of the puzzle, I think, is searching. So if you go to home screen, Matt, can you go to the home screen? Hello. Oh, Matt left the call. Let's see if I can get back into.
Did you need a hand with something, Dan?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, I'm back. Okay.
That's okay. I got back into Deb, so I'm sure.
My pulse crapped out on me. You want me to share my screen up again with you guys?
No, I'm doing good. I shared mine again. Deb finally came up.
Nice.
So from the home screen, we've done create change. The other action that you can take from the home screen is search change. And really, search change is search all elements of a change. You can put search changes. There is no real logic in there right now to say search requirements. Unless they've added it. That might be. Let's see. I don't think it's in there right now. Hey, it is added. Yay. Okay, good. So that story can be closed. Anything to do with change from a search perspective, you can throw in there. You'll notice there are 3 tabs. There's changes, technical requirements, communication requirements. Search functionality for each one is different at the moment. Anything in the search space that has a little happy face guy, that head, means that you are a member of the change. I don't have a way to sort this view yet, but it is a story and request. What you can do instead is filter the list. There are 2 filters that are applied to this current list. One you can see right now, it's a confidence, anything of less than 3. We had a little glitch at the beginning where people could put their confidence up to 6 for some reason. That's why that's in there in the dev space. The other filter that is applied, but you can't see right now, is under the Apply Filters button. It's actually filtering changes from 1 week back and 2 weeks ahead. If you want to see changes that were created, say, a quarter ago or half a year ago, because that's how long they are, you got to X that out. And then we can also sort by statuses, so I can get rid of all the crap that I don't want to see, like canceled or closed. I don't care about those. Maybe draft, I don't want to know, but I want to see, say, something that is in active status. What is being worked on right now? And it is an active filter. As soon as I click that, you'll notice the list. Everything here is active. To view the actual change itself, you just click on the line and the change details come up. Where there is issues is you'll notice how I clicked on an active change, but it says canceled. There's an update issue in the search functionality. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the status of the change. The other issue that we've got is when you go back to your search results, your filter is gone. You have to reapply your filter. We do have stories in. This is still only, as of today, it's 3 months live. So this is still basic functionality to get us working in the process. We have a list a mile long of improvement updates that we would like to see. But keep in mind, this tool is not being configured. It is being built from scratch. Every time we do something, we end up breaking something else. So it's a bit of a dragged out process to get this built to a place where it can be just easily configured and tweaked as opposed to a full code setup in the back end. Searching requirements is very different in that I don't have that filter capability. The only thing that I can filter right now is start and end times. Same filter criteria exists. It's 1 week back and 2 weeks ahead, so that you can really get a feel for the work that is coming down the pipe. We have a better view for you, though, if you have not subscribed to, granted it's old tech, but we have the old SharePoint still available. You can see all of the changes that are planned in our forward schedule of change in a very pretty color-coded fashion on our forward schedule of change calendar. You can pull down the dates and you can see all the work while you're planning it that is looked at going out. One thing that I'm going to mention that we are really cracking down on is you see a lot of these requirement pieces in here that are going over multiple weeks. Okay, that's a no-no. Okay, requirements are point-in-time pieces of work. They're not multiple weeks. This has to stop. This was never a thing in Remedy. I don't know why teams think they can get away with it just because it's in EVA. So as we go through the reviews on these, and I've got my support guys chasing you, limit those windows. Multiple requirements for specific windows, because nobody can plan if everybody's doing work over this friggin' week. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Completely useless information. So, communications, same deal. You can only sort by the start and the end dates. There's no filter capability in there yet, but there will be. It is planned. When you click on a requirement, what you will notice is that it takes you to the change. And then you click on the requirement space and find the requirement that you were actually looking for. It's set up in a relational activity that way, so you don't just see the pop-up for the requirement and you don't get a feel for everything else that's going on in that space. You get to see the entire change, and it gives the option, if you haven't logged in or joined the change yet, to do all of the activities that are associated at the change level that you wouldn't have access to if we just gave you the requirement pop-up. There is a request, though, to take you to the change and to pop up the requirement or highlight it right away. Because if there's 20 requirements in the change record, it can be confusing as to which one, especially if they're closely named, that you need to pick. I totally hear you. We do have a story in for that. It's just not in place just yet. Okay. And that, my friends, is the change management tool in a nutshell. I think the only other piece that you should be aware of is the communications. I've seen a lot in the chat space, people asking about how communications are received when they go out. Communications, when things, we'll put quote unquote, are normal. So that means changes are closed in a normal status. Requirements are put in with multiple day lead times for review. When things are working as designed, 90% of your notifications are going to show up in this little bell up top. And you can click, it'll tell you what happened. You can click and view the change or the requirement if you want. It takes you right through. And I mean, if you've got a list because you've been on vacation, you can clear them all to start fresh. The only time you're going to get an email, because we've been very cognizant of the disaster that Remedy was, where they sent you an email every time somebody changed a word. You will get an email if a requirement is scheduled within the next 24 hours to review, so that it's kind of a rush request. You'll get an email when you are invited as an end user. You will get an email if confidence on a change has dropped, so all work is going to be stopped. Those are the only times that you should be seeing emails on changes. The rest of it comes through the notification space. If you have feedback ideas on better ways to formulate those communications, if you would like to see an email, for example, on change closure, we can absolutely do something like that to the group. On the training site, and that link should have been included in your invite to this meeting, we do have on the very home page, if it loads, it's just my internet, I think. It's just slow in this room. There we go. On the home page, we have a feedback form down at the bottom of the page. If it ever loads, there we go. And you can put in all your ideas, all your suggestions for how we can better the process, better communications, better the forms, better anything about change management that you would like to see. If you're seeing bugs with the system, same idea. You can either create an incident in ServiceNow if you want, because we do have the support team in there, or you can just fill out the form and we'll create a Jira story for you, because we're still technically in kind of I would say, an expanded pilot phase for the tool, trying to get her into a stabilized status. When you get to the training site itself, there's a link to our Google Chat window that you can sign up for. And throw your questions in there. We get a lot of questions that we answer, usually within a few hours within the business day. The workflow, if you have questions about how the process works for the workflow, just click on the space in that diagram that you want to review, and it will pull up the documentation. So this is how to create a change. Now this is slides. If you're one of the new generation video guys, I do have under the How Do I section, we've got little videos. All of the training videos are there. We also have how-to videos on, if it loads up, how to search, how to create a change, how to create a requirement, invite a collaborator, all of those if you need a refresher on how to do this. At the very bottom of page 2, the recording of this meeting will actually be in there as well if you wanted to review. The reputation piece, if you want to get more into the math and why we did it, reputation the way reputation, there's a tab for that. Especially for those of you who, like I say, want to get into how we're calculating reputation and its real impact across the change world. The process documentation is in there under the process tab. And then every morning by 9 a.m., we have a reporting tab. We load up all of the latest requirements so that you don't have to pull any information out of the tool or worry that it's not filterable. You can actually go to this report, grab your own copy, and filter it any way that turns your crank. So that's it, folks. Was that sufficient? Holy cow, we went through not quite 2 hours.
Hey, Dan, this is Chad. Just wondering around searching within EVA,
Yep.
Is it, are we able to find the servers that are being utilized or going to be affected by some of the changes?
So at this time, what you would have to do is you would have to pull in the training site, you'd have to pull a copy of the requirement report and search for the server name there, and hopefully it's in the component piece. If they haven't added it in the component, if they've added it as some sort of attachment in a spreadsheet somewhere, you won't necessarily be able to find it. You'll have to know by support team or whatever the work is that they're doing. When we have CMDB in place, it will be searchable. Right now, that CMDB or that component option is still free text. So if they type it wrong, if they type in the service instead of a particular server, if they put in all kinds of random information, if they don't include that specifically in the record, it won't necessarily be there. It may be on the JIRA site, it may be in a spreadsheet, it may be in multiple locations to get to a specific item. Okay. And this is no different from Remedy. We had the same problem there too. Make sense?
Yep.
If it has been included in the implementation plan, though, it will be in this report. In the raw data space, we pull all of the fields. So you should be able to filter and information that you need, or do a search for the name. And if it's in there and it's spelled correctly, it should be able to be pulled up. Any other questions?
I had posted one at the bottom there. So it's just a little quirky on what constitutes entering a requirement in a change request. Is it any time that the system will be impacted or work that we need to put one in?
If you're touching a production system, you have to have a change. So changing configuration or changing state are the two most common reasons for creating a requirement. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So infrastructure changes, if you're adding, removing, updating hardware, if you are changing configuration on software, if we are adding or removing functionality, data is a gray area. So data is owned by the business and it's managed by the business. It is not specifically managed by a tool set or by a configuration. So a data change, like for example, I may have a service request or a change to push Excel out to the organization. But every time you create an Excel record, you're using the tool as designed. The data that you put in that Excel record is changing in the Excel record, but it's not a change. We haven't changed the configuration of the tool as designed. You're using it as it's set up to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in a way, I guess it's just like, when we're doing this whole migration thing, and then we're doing fixes on bugs and true ups and that kind of thing, and it's like, okay, when do I'm assuming anytime we're doing those things, we have to do it, but is there a time when we're not supposed to be doing it?
So data migration, when you're moving stuff to another system, yeah, I would say. If you are manually creating records in that system using the system as designed, you wouldn't have to, right? It's all the, I would say the star on it is a back end technical implementation that is required to make it a thing. If an end user or a power user could do it, you probably don't need a change.
Right. Okay. And it's production only.
So production, if you're working in the JIRA space. If you do not have development in the JIRA space, right now we're asking that you create a change record or a requirement record as well for your UAT implementations. So for a lot of the infrastructure setups, they're not working in JIRA right now. I need something that shows that we proved out the architecture, that we set up the implementation in a non-production space before we can move it to prod. Applications, I think for the most part, especially in the data space, you guys are all in JIRA. I can't think of a situation off the top of my head where I would need something in the UAT space, and yet, unless you felt it was something that needed absolutely to be tracked. And then you have that capability, but I'm not requiring it, really, just because I can look through your history in JIRA. I'm just really looking for that production. And then in the production request, we'll have the proof in JIRA that you did it through the other non-prod environments. That's all the audit requirement is to prove the life cycle, and JIRA captures a good development life cycle. The only thing JIRA doesn't capture is approval, and the approval is really built in the EVA system. So, okay.
Okay, thanks.
You do not have to be connected to the ATB network, at least not at the moment, to access EVA. So you can get it on your phone. It does have a very good mobile component. So if you need someone to join a change or provide an approval, like a confidence factor, if you need them to review requirements, or if you are on the road, you absolutely can do that. If you want to talk to EVA, so you need to create a record or something like that in the tool, and you don't want to type, we do have this cool little Talk to EVA button, and she will take dictation. The kicker with it is if we are in the requirement creation stage, the form right now is a pop-up, and the voice capability is not available. It is available in the change space. Oh, it's closed. What if I pick one that's active? So if I go over here and I want to create a requirement, you'll notice how there is no, so as it pops up here, there's no voice button capability in this space. But if I go back and I actually create change, loads, a little sucker. Oh, thanks. I can't spell. There we go. Although the form is over here and I can click and I can fill it in, I can also turn on the voice, and I can record my input directly to Eva, and she'll fill in the forms as we go. And the plan is to have the voice capability available across the board for all pieces, for search, for create, for the requirement pieces as well. So if you were on a small screen like a mobile screen, you could actually just dictate everything that you needed to do. So. Any other questions, folks? Awesome. So the change management team is available to you. There's 3 of us. Look for the types of meetings that I described throughout the process thing. So you'll be invited to MCRs. You'll be invited to change end reviews if you're an initiator or requester, and potentially implementers or stakeholders, depending on the type of review that needs to happen, and if we felt there were any issues with the change. Other than that, you are free to move about the tool with your collaborative team at your own speed, in your own time frame. Keep in mind, though, if you do have unexpected impacts, if we start seeing issues, you'll be back to those lockdown, boring change meetings to discuss and ensure that there is a review, a physical review and physical approval that goes through a larger group than just your team. So this process will be what you make it. It's not change control that is the lead on this. It is you guys. All of the ducks have been put in a row in your space, and it's up to you guys to maintain this. We are here in a strictly administrative capability. So, all right.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for joining today. And like I said, the link to this meeting will be sent out as soon as I have it posted on the training site. Use the training site wherever you have questions. And if you can't get an answer there, hit us up either IM or over in the chat window, and we can get your any issues or anything like that you have answered. There are known bugs, so it's worth reviewing the chat window to see what's still active and what we fixed. And we really look forward to collaborating with you to making this a better tool. Have a great week, guys.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Claudia?
Yeah?
Can I talk to you sometime today?
Who is this?
This is Joanna.
Oh, yeah, sure. Anytime. Yeah, we still need to finalize
results.
on that, your change there. Yeah, please.
Okay, you're available later on around 2 maybe?
No, I have a meeting at 2, maybe before or after 3.
Okay, I'll ping you. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Ow.